I finally just had to say it. I said, you've detached God from your life. That's a dangerous place to be.
Yeah.
You think you believe the right things about God, but it has nothing to do with your life because you're not even responding properly. Should be our narrative when it says he chose to give us birth through the word of truth, that we might be kind of a first fruits of all he created, because he's using that as a metaphor. You have the other side of this where we're like grass, which seems so depressing, which it really does.
Yeah.
We spring up, we're like, well, I'm going to take the world, and then guess what? You wither and die. And that's what happens.
Well,
but then you have this first fruits, that this new, because that implies this new creation, which is in most of the religious arguments I'm having currently. These people have one thing in common, the people that I'm arguing with. They don't understand anything about the new creation.
Yeah.
That they're like, why do you keep saying new creation? I'm like, I'm not saying that. It's all over the New Testament. Jesus launched it because they're trying to make this old stuff like law-keeping, compartmentalizing, God, then it's not having to do with anything in the way they live their life. Trying to make that the thing, just kind of what you believe about God instead of actually having a relationship. And what's really helped me in our studies the last year is when you see righteousness and faithfulness and the words like that, if you look at the Hebrew definitions of those words, it's all in the context of a relationship. I mean, I can give you an example, I'd love to, with Cain and Abel, when he said, if you'll just do what's right, won't I lift you up? Remember when the reason I was there is because when he said we might become kind of a first fruit of all he created. Well, that word, if you look up where it's used in the New Testament, is really exciting. It talks about the resurrection, but it also has other implications. But when you go back to the story with Cain and Abel, when he says, you say, what was the problem? It says, Abel was giving him the firstborn of his flock because he was more of a shepherd.
Right.
Well, there's a firstborn narrative in the Bible also.
Right.
About having power when you were the firstborn. And so what was the problem here? Well, Cain, it didn't say he was given the first fruit. It just said he was giving him some of his crops, not the first fruits. Because that first fruits would become a theme, and I looked it up. I can share that where it is, but it's 3 different times in the Old Testament in the law about the power of the first fruits. Because you're saying, we trust you so much that we're going to give where this came from, which I just read in Isaiah 40. God is causing these things to grow on the planet, not us. But just think how hard that is to do. To trust God, we're going to give you the first fruits because we know you're going to keep producing for us because we're putting all our trust in you. And so that was the problem. That's why even though it doesn't seem that bad, I mean, Cain was giving him some of his crops.
Right.
But Abel's was better because he was showing that trust factor. I'm giving you the firstborn because I know my trust is in you and you're going to take care of me. So then the little conversation happens. And when God says that, which I think people who think that God makes us all robots and there's just a few, set beforehand that's going to make it, none of this really matters. And they have trouble with why would God say, all you got to do is do what's right.
Yeah.
And I'll lift you up.
Yeah, he gives them the opportunity to do the right thing.
But that word right, when you look it up, think about it. It wasn't that he was necessarily doing something that wrong. He was giving, but he wasn't giving that first fruits, which was a sign that he was not trusting God.
It's the Beatitudes as all over again. It was the thought, it was what was going on behind the action.
Exactly. Which is the relationship we have. The Sermon on the Mount can be depicted by that. So when people say, and these arguments that I say that I'm having all the time, they're not arguments. They're just like, a guy's living in sin. I mean, I had this conversation not very long ago, and he came to me, and it's like, and we're playing golf. It wasn't about golf. I was wondering why he wanted to play golf, but he's like, well, I messed up, done all these things. So I'm like, well, I immediately went to, how's your relationship with God? How's this working? Well, I noticed in the conversation there was a detachment between what he believed. He's like, oh, well, I believe in God. Yeah, that's fine. I was like, but your lifestyle is the exact opposite
It's not fine.
of anything godly. And he's like, well, yeah. I said, no, there's no well, yeah. That connection, I mean, I'm not saying this to be funny. It was so shocking to me that I finally just had to say it. I said, you've detached God from your life. That's a dangerous place to be.
Yeah.
You think you believe the right things about God, but it has nothing to do with your life because you're not even responding properly. Because in fact, during the course of the conversation about this sinful life, I noticed that most of the reasoning was not his fault in his mind.
Yeah.
Like, well, it wasn't, it was somebody else's fault.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, who was there? Who did these acts? He's like, well, that was me, but I'm just telling you why. I was like, oh, I know why. And I'm saying this and sharing this because I thought, he's got a delusion here.
Yeah.
There's a delusion and there's a detachment of God being real. He's thinking what's right and wrong, but it's not in the context of you're not acting right in your relationship with God. That's why it's wrong.
Yeah.
It's not just because you did something wrong.
Right.
This is not
Which
right
is kind of
with
the
him.
concept of the first fruit. If you kept the first fruit for yourself, even if you give some later to God or even for good, then the idea is, why would you give yourself the first fruit? It's kind of like the illustration used on the Hillsdale podcast about when you were talking about my weight loss journey. Remember the illustration you were talking about?
Yeah.
The idea that you detach yourself from what you know is not good for you. And you just keep doing it and you keep having the same results, but like in your mind, you found a way to just deceive yourself. And
It's like a disordered love at the end of the day. So think about like what that ultimately ends up being is like idolatry is just really worship of yourself.
yeah, love that conversation that Jase was mentioning from Genesis 4, that God gives Cain a chance to do the right thing. I mean, to not do what his heart is
exactly.
pulling him to do. Because he says sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you.
But what was his motivation? What do you think? I think his motivation was that God's not going to provide for me.
Yeah.
I need to be my own God, and I got to shore this up. So, I'll give a sacrifice, but I'm not giving you the best because I might run out. And you see that pattern play out through all of Israel.
Yeah.
Hoarding up the manna. You know what I mean? Like, it's always like a thing like, okay, I'm going to give you something that look like I'm going to signal that I got the virtue, but at the end of the day, I got to make sure that I'm going to be protected. So I'm going to provide it for. So I'm going to take that on myself.
And he does, so he winds up not listening, obviously, and then he commits the first recorded murder in human history and unleashes that. And right up to the story, the grotesque story you told earlier.
Oh, no.
I mean, when you see that, you see you're capable of anything. And that's what God is telling him. Look, I mean, what you're about to unleash, you're just upset because he's doing the right thing and you're not. And right now you're just mad about it.
Exactly.
But what's about to happen is you're about to unleash something that then will never, you can't put that back in the bottle. And that's what people do to this day.
That's why sin, we tend to just look at it as a breaking of a moral code. And in that context, you really see the true definition of the Hebrew word for sin, where the missing the mark or going down the wrong road. Once you get detached from the Father in that relationship and imaging God and his character, the possibilities are endless on how bad things can get for you.
That's right.
Because you're kind of justifying it with right things. That's what people don't think about Cain. They're like, oh, what a terrible person. Wait, it wasn't like he wasn't given anything.
Yeah.
He was given enough to say, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
But God knew his heart and was like, no, this one's better because they're fully reliant on me by giving